These are the 7 exercises that you're going to want to include in your strengthening program. Now, when I say exercises, I'm going to talk about functional movement patterns, often called compound lifts. Within each of these functional movement patterns, there are going to be different exercise variations you could choose from. But if you can get all 7 functional movement patterns into your workout, you've got a good, well-rounded program that is going to work your entire body. So those 7 movement patterns that we're going to look into are the squat, hip hinge, lunge, push, pull, rotation or anti-rotation, and gate or carry. Within each one of these, there are different exercise variations you could look at. So let's look at the squat. You might do a squat down to a box to start with. So you've got the safety net of that box behind you. You could pick a dumbbell squat, or we could go into a barbell squat. For the hip hinge, you could start simple and go for a bridge on the floor. Then we've got the Romanian deadlift, and then that can progress on to a conventional deadlift. For the lunge, we can look at different options of a split squat. So to start, we might go to a half depth where we only lower our back knee down to a raised surface, like a few blocks. And then as we progress, we can reduce the height of those blocks till eventually we're doing it just where we lower our back knee to the floor whilst we're either without weights or with holding weights. If you want to challenge your balance a little bit more, you could just hold one weight in one hand, so it's pulling you down to the side and you're having to work your abdominals to control that. For the push exercise, you might choose a bench press to start with because you don't need as much shoulder mobility to do that as when you go into a seated shoulder press. And then if you want to progress that further, you could do a standing shoulder press. So now you're going to have to control your balance a little bit more and stop pushing your back into extension as you go up. For the pull exercise, you can keep that simple and just use a resistance band and do a seated row to start with. Or if you've only got dumbbells available to you, you can then do that as a bent over row with the dumbbells. The other option is you could use a TRX or a suspension trainer and do a TRX row. Then we come on to the rotation and anti-rotation exercises. So the first anti-rotation exercise is a pale-off press. So you're pushing your arms away from you whilst resisting the band's attempt to pull your body round. Or we could progress that on so you're doing a trunk rotation, so you're creating the rotation with your abdominal muscles. And then lastly, we could add a bit of a diagonal to that, so we're doing a wood chopper where we're pulling the band down from a higher position while still twisting around. Finally, we've got those gate and carry exercises. So they're replicating things that we might be carrying, like shopping or pushing a wheelbarrow, etc. So initially we might hold a weight in each hand as we're walking across. Or we might just go for a weight in one hand and that's pulling us down to one side. So in order to stay upright, we're going to have to use a few more abdominal muscles to do that. And that replicates carrying a full watering can or a suitcase in one hand. And then we can bring in the overhead walk where we bring the shoulder into it and we still have to control the weight trying to push us down to one side, so we're having to use a bit more abdominal control there. So they are the 7 movement patterns that we can bring into our strengthening program. And if you can build strength in all 7 movement patterns, you're going to create a robust, resilient body that is going to deal with the demands of everyday life. Now you know which exercises to do, you're going to want to know how many you should be doing. So I recommend that you watch this video next.